let me share a little bit about myself. Let's get to know each other in case you don't know me. I love to end my days the same way all the time. And here's what I love to end my days with. A big bowl, you can finish it with me, people, if you know, of ice cream. Yeah, see, the people who've been coming for a while, they know he's going to say ice cream. I love to finish my days. In fact, I have an ice cream bowl collection. And if you ever come by, I can show you. People buy me bowls. I have some with my names on it. And when I say bowls, I mean like big, like you could just drop the whole half carton right in there and just have yourself a good end of the day. Now, I also like to pair that ice cream with a show, right? I've got my favorite shows, and I'm sure you probably have your favorite shows. So I love one show in particular. At the end of the day, it kind of meets all the needs that I have internally, if it was a good day or a bad day. I've got that show that I love to go, a man show, a man show that kind of, this is what I want to watch. And sometimes my wife will watch it with me, but she knows, she catches me watching the show often, and it is Fixer Upper. You didn't know what I was going to say. Thank you. So all the Gaines fans that's what it is, right? So Fixer Upper, man, I'm telling you, I could watch Fixer Upper all day long. I don't care if they showed the same episode time after time. I would just keep watching. I tell Amy all the time that I think Chip and Joanna are my two favorite people in the world, the whole world. Never met them, only seen them on a screen, but I said, like, I just love these people. I love you too, babe, but I love these people. That's just how it is. And so I love that show. And here's the premise of the show if you haven't seen it. Chip and Joanna, Chip is the husband. He does all the construction side of things, and Joanna comes in and she just like makes it look good. Like the finishing touches. And now we could all be Joanna, because thank God for Target, right? Like we can just shop there and just buy what we need to. But what happens is a couple comes to them, or a person comes and says, I've got this house, it's falling apart, we want to buy it, but we don't see the potential in it. Like it's broken, we can't even say like it's dying, it's on its way out, but they can't do anything with it. That's me when it comes to like design and construction. Like I just see a mess. There's no way I can really help out in this situation. And so these people, they come to Chip and Joanna, say, here's what we have, we don't know what to do with it, but we're coming to you, we're going to place this in your hands, we're going to trust you to kind of make it come back to life, to just kind of make it the best that it can be. And I mean, the big reveal at the end, when they pull back the cardboard, the big things, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's what it looks like now. And it took someone who knew what they were doing to kind of resurrect that house, right? To kind of give it some new life, to bring it to what it could be, man. They saw the potential. They're walking through like, we could take this wall out. We could put like a little cat pillow right there. I'm like, what does that even mean? Those colors, these colors. And we can do all these things. And people that don't know are just like, I just can't see that. I mean, this thing is so broken. This thing is so jacked up. This thing is on its way out. Like no one wants this. But you get it into the hands of the right people, and suddenly they can bring it to life. They can resurrect that thing. They can make it better than it's ever been, the way it was designed to be. Now, that's great for houses. But I'm wondering, like maybe you've asked this before, where can I find the Chip and Joanna for relationships? Right, come on, can I just throw my relationship into the hand of another person? Can I just say, here, look, I'm pretty much done with this. I can't figure it out. I'm going to put it in your hands. We're going to go eat food, and then we're going to come back, and it's going to be all fixed, because that's kind of how it goes in the show. It's like, how did they do that in 6 weeks? Wouldn't that be great if we can give someone, hey, here's my finances. I mean, I jacked this up. It's kind of burnt into the ground. I don't really know what else I can do here, but I'm just going to put it in your hands. I'm going to throw it there. I'm going to check out, because if my hands get on it, it's probably going to get worse, because that's kind of how it started getting worse. And I'm going to come back, and I want to see the finished product. Or even physically. How cool would that be if you could say, look, I'm just going to put myself into your hands. You know how to fix me. I've been dealing with this for a while now, but I believe you can take care of it. That would be great. It would be great if we could throw the horizontal situations that you and I deal with on a regular basis. The expectations at work, the expectations at home, the financial stress, the physical stress. Maybe for you, it's even a spiritual stress. Like you're wondering, is God real? Does God care? Can I just throw that somewhere? Can I have someone that I can put that to, and it could be fixed? It could be made new. And we all experience these tragic moments in our lives. There's not one person in this space that could say, look, I'm free and clear of brokenness. I've got nothing wrong with my life, with the lives of the people around me. We all know what it's like to be in broken, tragic situations. And that's why this matters. Because if you're not in one right now, you know this is true. At some point, you are going to face brokenness that you weren't expecting. You didn't expect to get that phone call. You didn't expect that news to come through. You didn't expect to show up to work only to be let go from work. So we're all going to face these things. We are all of us going to face broken moments in our lives because it just seems like there's something wrong with the world. The world's broken. So what do we do? What do you do in that moment? What is your coping mechanism? You know about coping mechanisms? Like, hey, I'm going through something hard right now, so I'm going to cope. So not just one bowl of ice cream, 20 bowls of ice cream. That's kind of where I need 20 right now. That's a coping mechanism. For some of us, maybe we withdraw, we isolate ourselves. I'm going to work through this in isolation. Others of us, we try to create more noise around the situation. I'm going to get around as many people as I can, turn up the dial on that so it drowns out what's really going on. The problem with a lot of our coping mechanisms is that we're just coping. We're just learning to deal with what's broken instead of saying, what if this could be made new? What if this could be resurrected? What if this could be fixed? And today, I want to share with you a story of a family who went through a very broken, tragic situation. And I believe probably all of us are going to be able to relate to this because it involves a family member dying. And I know I've had family members pass. I've had friends pass. And so we know what that feels like. You especially know what it feels like maybe if it's tragic, if it's unexpected, if it's something I never could have thought was coming. We know what that's like. We know that happens. And in this story, this family experienced this tragedy. They experienced this pain and this loss and this unexpected. And they take this broken situation and they put it into the hands of Jesus. And something new comes out of it. And there's a question that Jesus asks throughout the story. And there's a word that Jesus uses throughout the story that you and I need to grab onto today. So we're going to read from the book of John. John was a follower of Jesus. He was an eyewitness to the resurrection, to the death of Jesus. He followed Jesus. He was a disciple of Jesus. And not even 40 years after Jesus died and rose from the dead, John wrote down what we're going to read. That's a big deal. Not even 40 years after the event. It was written down. It was passed around in the first century and preserved for us to read today. And so John writes about this tragic moment that impacts this family. John chapter 11 is what we're going to read. I'm going to start in verse 1. We're going to have the scriptures up here for you to follow along with. And if you have a Bible, you can use your Bible as well. John 11:1. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. That's confusing. Just hold on, because there's 4 names there, but Bethany's the town, okay? I got distracted the first time I was reading. I'm like, what happened to Bethany? Where'd she go? That's the town, okay? So there's 3 siblings, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And look what happens. A man named Lazarus was sick. Okay, so we've experienced this before. People get sick in our lives. This is relatable. We'll go to verse 3. So the 2 sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. Now, let me pause there for a second. Because Jesus had 12 disciples. You might be familiar with that. 12 apostles, 12 men who followed him around, and they were learning to be like him. But that wasn't the only 12 people Jesus impacted. I mean, we're talking about this guy 2,000 years later, so he impacted more than 12. He had hundreds and thousands of people who were following him, who enjoyed his messages, who enjoyed his meals, who saw great things happen. But do you know that out of everyone listed in the accounts of John, who followed him, Matthew, who followed him, Mark, who knew Peter, who followed him, out of all these accounts, there is one person known as the friend of Jesus. And it's Lazarus. So like when Jesus wants to Netflix binge and get Domino's, he calls Lazarus. That's his go-to. John, sorry, man, we'll talk about sermons later. I'm going to Lazarus's house. That's my friend. In fact, we could read other stories where Jesus stayed over Lazarus. Like, Jesus is Lazarus' boy. Like, don't worry about it. I'm sick, but your boy Jesus has got this. We're friends. We're going to take care of this situation. And Martha and Mary, they know that. So, I mean, this is an easy fix. Jesus, we've seen you heal people. We've seen you fix things. We've seen you do great things. Look, Lazarus is sick. You're probably going to be coming through anyway. Could you show up and just heal him? We know you've got this. Now, What happens next makes me question the friendship of Jesus and Lazarus. Look at what John says happened. So Jesus gets that message, but when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. Well, that's good news. Right? Come on, that's good news right there. Okay, so Lazarus is sick. Martha and Mary sent him a message. Look, Lazarus is sick. Jesus gets the message. Don't worry about it. This isn't going to kill him. Tell Lazarus, just calm down. It's a cold. Something like that. It's okay. And then Jesus explains, look, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. Now, this is where it gets weird. So although Jesus loved Martha, loved Mary, loved Lazarus, he's been there, he's eaten with them, this is his friends. Although he loved them, he stayed there, where he was, for the next 2 days. So that's a little weird to me. Hey, I'm your friend. You need help. Awesome. I'll see you in a couple days. That's what Jesus is saying right here. And I think that there's probably some of us in this space that we can relate to that moment. Because you've prayed the prayer, you've gone to church, you even put money in the box. I mean, you did everything to get Jesus' attention. It's like, Jesus, I need you to come through in this situation. And it seemed like Jesus just stayed there for 2 days in your life. And it makes you wonder, okay, if God's real, if Jesus is real, if Jesus loves me, why in the world is he not coming through? Could you imagine how they're feeling back at home? They send this message. I mean, this isn't text messages. Like carrier pigeons, I guess. They send the bird out, the bird comes back, and Jesus says, I love you guys. He's not going to die. Okay, good news. And I'm just going to chill here for a couple days. What's going on there? And then Jesus has some conversation with his disciples during this time, and he's kind of sharing some things with them, and it's kind of mysterious, and they're not fully getting what's going on with Lazarus. Like he's speaking Jesus. When Jesus speaks Jesus, it's like code. It's like, could you just tell me what you want to say? Like, stop bringing up the plants and the seeds. Like, just tell me what you want to say. And so Jesus is saying, like, our friend Lazarus is asleep. I got to go wake him up. And they're like, well, napping is good. Don't wake him up. He's like, no, that's not what we're talking about here. And then, so he tells them in verse 14, John says, he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Hey, you're not getting it. Lazarus is dead. And then Jesus says something again that makes me question the ways of Jesus. Because look at what he says. And for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now you will really believe. Come, let's go see him. Okay, Jesus, why are you being so cold in this moment? Hey, Lazarus is dead, and I'm so glad I wasn't there for it. That's the Jesus that we're going to celebrate on April 1st? I'm so glad, and you have felt this. In fact, for some of you, maybe this is your first time in church in a long time because you felt like Jesus hung out for 2 days, never came through, and he gave you the cold shoulder when he did come through. Jesus, I thought you were supposed to take care of me. I'm praying, why is this person not getting better? Why are my finances still a wreck? Why do I still feel this way? Why can't I find a job? And it's like, Jesus, why are you saying these hard, weird things? And then he says, let's go see him. So now, it takes 2 days to get from where they are to where Lazarus is. So this is 4 days between when Jesus first got the message, your boy is sick. Okay, it's not going to kill him. I'll come when I come. But now, what did Jesus say before? Lazarus is dead. So which is it, Jesus? Come on, you said at first this isn't going to kill him, and now you're telling the disciples Lazarus is dead. So what are we working with here? Why should you believe in Jesus today if this is the image of Jesus that we're getting? And so Jesus travels with his friends to the place where Lazarus was. It's been 4 days now since he died. And when he gets there, as you would expect, the place is a wreck. I mean, emotionally, people are distraught. The friends of Jesus are wondering why he didn't show. They're wondering why he sent that crazy message. It's not going to kill him, and now their brother's dead. And it's been 4 days. And what you need to understand in the first century for Jewish people, when someone was dead for 4 days, there was no chance of a miraculous healing. Because there was this belief that after 4 days, the soul had left the body. And so there was no one who could grab the soul from the clouds and re-put it in a person. The body has been decomposing now. The fragrances that were put in on the first day, they don't work anymore. The whole thing stinks, literally and figuratively. And Jesus rolls in, and could you imagine the scene? Could you imagine the crying, the screaming, and the confusion, and the pain, and all the things that you and I have felt? And when he gets there, Martha and Mary hear that Jesus has got there, and look at what happens. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. You know that when situations come into our lives, people respond differently to them. There are some of us that when situations come, we get so broken, we get so without a drive or passion, we can't even leave the house. Don't want to talk, don't want to see anybody. It's how we cope. And now we're going to see how these two sisters cope with the death of their brother and the crazy words of their friend Jesus. So Mary stays in the house. Martha goes out. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died." You've said that before. Come on, I've said that before. God, if only you showed up. If only you came through. I know I read somewhere in here that you were supposed to come through for me. If only, if only. If is this small two-letter word that is so loaded with potential and with regret. And at this point in the story, there is nothing but regret. If only God came through. If only he showed up. Jesus, if only you were here. I don't get it. You healed all those people. You took care of everyone else. And your friend Lazarus gets sick and you can't show up? If only you were here, he wouldn't have died. But Martha doesn't stop there. She says something else after that statement. She says, "But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Now, that's a big deal to make that statement when your brother's been dead for 4 days. You see what she's doing there? She's putting her faith into Jesus. Jesus, look, would have been great if you didn't lie to us. Don't know what that was about. All right, the whole he's not going to die thing, that was weird, but I'm going to forgive you. And now you're here. I wish you showed up earlier, but you know what? I believe that even now you can come through. You can do something. And Jesus responds back to her and says, "Your brother will rise again." Now look at how Martha copes in this moment. "Yes," Martha said, "he will rise when everyone else rises on the last day." Now what's going on here is Martha is leaning into her beliefs and her religion. She's got Jesus standing there with her, a relationship with Jesus, and she's going back onto what she has been taught as a child. Here's what most Jews in the first century believed, that at the end of time, there would be this great resurrection where all of God's chosen people would come back to life. This is her religion. It's what she believes. And so she copes with the death of her brother by saying, it's okay, I've got what I believe. She's got Jesus standing there right in front of her. And she's missing something because she's going on what she's seen and experienced and what she's been told from way back when. And she's missing Jesus right there. Maybe today you're pushing Jesus out of your life because you've been told things about Jesus for your whole life. Because you have a belief about Jesus, because you have a religion about Jesus. Maybe you don't believe he exists. That's your religion. And Martha's coping with the situation by leaning into her religion. And Jesus is there. And thank God, Jesus is not content with letting us cope with the wrong coping mechanisms. Jesus is not okay with us using the wrong things to get through broken situations. And Jesus says something profound in this moment. He says, "I am the resurrection and the life." She says, "I know someday he'll rise from the dead." And Jesus says, hold on. I am that someday. And when Jesus says, "I am" there, he's claiming to be God. He's saying, look, I'm the guy. Right? This is Long Island. We all have a guy. Right? Everyone's got a guy. If I need a plumber, I guarantee all of you, I have a guy. Martha and Mary and Lazarus, they had the guy. We know the guy that heals. Jesus says, not going to die. Don't know what that was about. 4 days later, shows up. Now Martha's saying, I got my religion. And Jesus says, no, you need the guy. I'm the guy. I am the resurrection and the life. And now he says some real good news for Lazarus. He says, anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. I mean, that's great. Lazarus is dead in the tomb. So if we believe in you, Jesus, then we're going to live after we die. But then he says something a little weird because he's Jesus. Look at the next verse. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. But I don't get it because I haven't met Martha, Mary, or Lazarus right now. Have you? No. You know why? Because they died. It's plain and simple. 2,000 years ago, when Jesus said, if you believe in me, you will live and never die, they died. So what is Jesus talking about? Again, confusing statements. He says Lazarus' story won't end in death. Now he's saying, believe in me and live and never die. And it's like, but we just know, factually speaking, that can't be true. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know people who believe in Jesus who have died. And he asked Martha, do you believe this? Martha, do you believe this? And she says something great. She says, yes, Lord. I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. And so what Martha is now moving into is it's not just the someday resurrection, but yes, I believe you came from God. And that's the question that we've got to answer today. Is Jesus just a man? Did he fake his own death and had his disciples steal the body? I mean, was this all a hallucinated dream? These are some real theories that we can lean into about the resurrection. And Martha is saying, I believe you're from God. You are God. You are from God. You are the Messiah, the Savior of the world. And she goes back and she tells Mary the conversation she had. And now Mary, she wants to come out. Now when Mary comes out of the house, you can read it for yourself. The whole crowd follows her because they're afraid. I think that's why. I mean, Mary is broken over this, and they don't want her to feel alone in this situation. And so all of the criers, all of the wailers, all the people who are weeping with her, they go with her thinking she's going to go see the tomb. But she goes to Jesus. And I think this is the most heartbreaking scene in the story, and this might be where you find yourself if you've experienced tragedy. Because when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet. I mean, she finally got herself out of the house, and now she has fallen at the feet of Jesus. And she says what her sister said. Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. And what's curious about this moment with Mary is she doesn't say what Martha said after that. She stops. Because the way she is coping is just through denial. It's through anger. She is so broken that Jesus, her friend, did not come through. And she falls at his feet and barely gets these words out. And look at what happens next. When Jesus saw her weeping and the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Now understand, Jesus is not angry at the situation, at the people who are there. He's not angry at them saying, why aren't you believing? Another translation puts it that he is deeply moved. His spirit is grieved. You've experienced this before. When you are so sick to your stomach over a broken situation that it's like this anger wells up in you at what is taking place because you know it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be this broken. There shouldn't be this much death. And there's something that wells up in us. And in Jesus, he is now hurting with his friends. And we read that Jesus weeps with them. He cries with them. He is broken with them, which I love because obviously he's Jesus. He's God. He knows how the story ends, but that's not stopping him from relating to the people who are in it. God knows how your story ends, but that does not mean he's some distant God that is not weeping with you through it. And Jesus weeps and he gets to the tomb and he says, roll that stone away. Come on, let's roll that stone out. And here's where Martha starts to waver. Martha was coping with religion. She sees Jesus as the resurrection, and now she protests. And she says, Lord, he's been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. Come on, she knows. There's another story where Martha's always taking care of the house. So I think Martha's well aware, like, we don't have enough Lysol for this one, Jesus. Martha was the one that wanted to make sure that when people came over, it smelled good, it looked good. And now, she's like, look, we can't. Jesus, what is going on here? We cannot move that stone. It's going to stink. And now, more than that, she knows that what's the point? It's been 4 days. There's no resurrection happening here. But Jesus looks at her again and redirects her heart. And he says, didn't I tell you? Come on, Martha, didn't I tell you you would see God's glory if you believe? And he's reminding her of what they've already talked about. And depending on your view of Jesus, you're either going to read that as him being angry and disciplining her, or you're going to see him breaking with her and saying, Martha, just hang with me. Hang with me, my friend. I told you if you believe, this is going to work out. Just hang with me. And so they roll the stone aside, and Jesus looks up to heaven, and Jesus prays. And he says, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. I'm saying it out loud right now because there's people around me. So that they will believe you sent me. See, Jesus could have prayed in his head. He could have just done what he needed to do. But Jesus is more concerned about what's going on in the crowd. He's concerned of what's going on in Martha's heart. In fact, he's concerned of what's going on in the disciples' heart. And he says, I got to pray out loud right now because I want everyone around to know this is of God, and I want people to believe. And then here we go. Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. And Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. That's amazing. There is resurrection power happening, and it's not to Jesus in this story. It is through Jesus for one of his friends, for another person. And all throughout the story, all throughout the moment, all throughout the tragedy, there is one word that is repeated 6 times. He says it at first to the disciples, that weird part, I'm glad I wasn't there. Why? So you'll believe. Says it to Martha, do you believe this? I believe. Martha, didn't I tell you if you believe, just hang with me and believe. And he says, believe, 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 over and over and over again. In fact, that beginning statement that Jesus made, the one that kind of looked like a lie, do you know what Jesus was doing there? He was setting them up. He was getting them ready. When Jesus said in verse 4, but when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. Jesus wasn't lying there. He was giving them something to believe right at the start of it. He was saying, you're going to need this hope. You're going to need to believe something. You're going to need to make sure you have something to hold on to, that you have a hope, that you have an anchor, that you have a sure thing, because this situation is going to look like it's going to end in death, but trust me, this will not end in death. And all throughout the story, he's asking, do you believe? Do you believe? Because you need something. And that's why when Jesus said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life, and anyone who believes in me will live after dying. Okay, that part makes sense in the story. But what Jesus meant in the next statement is this: everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Let's connect what's going on here from the start to this moment. Jesus says Lazarus' story won't end in death, but it seems like it does. But no, it really doesn't. And Jesus is now making a promise, not just to Martha, but to all who will believe, right? We read anyone who believes. And he's saying what? You're going to live and you're not going to experience death. And the death Jesus is talking about is the situation you are now in or someday will be in does not have to be the end of your story. You do not have to die through the broken relationship. You do not have to die when all the pieces around you seem to be crumbling. Jesus is saying, you hold on to me, you believe in me, the resurrection and the life, and this story doesn't kill you. And I know that you know there are people who are being killed by their present reality right now. You've got family and friends that you are praying for because you see it is killing them. There's no other word that we use. We say it. That marriage is killing her. That business is killing him. That situation is driving him into the ground. But Jesus has this amazing promise. And it's not that you won't experience the brokenness. It's not that you won't experience broken pieces around you and in you. But it's that while you experience the brokenness, it does not have to end in death because of the resurrection and the life. And you've got to understand today that believing breaks the brokenness. You're going to be broken by the brokenness, or you're going to believe and the brokenness is going to break. And you're going to see it come through. And Jesus is going to be there with you, weeping through it. Because he knows this isn't how it's supposed to be. But because of the death and the resurrection of Jesus, we suffer differently. We all still suffer. I am not telling you today, just fill out a card and believe in Jesus, say a prayer, raise your hand, you'll never have a problem. If I said that, I'm a liar. And you know that. Because you got to go to work tomorrow. You're like, my boss is still here. He's lying. There's my problem. It's not that Jesus is saying problem-free living. He's saying in the problem, I am there. You will not be broken by this. I am the resurrection and the life. Sometimes it's going to feel like you're dying. It's going to feel that way. But you know what? You cannot experience resurrection without experiencing death. That's a good truth to know. Because when you feel like this thing's killing me, I've got no hope, hold on a second, I've got the resurrection of Jesus. This will not kill me. This will not end in death. I have the resurrection of Jesus. So the question that Jesus asked all throughout the story, and the question you need to answer today, is do you believe? Do you believe? Come on, do you believe what Jesus said is real? Do you believe it matters today? Do you believe that Jesus, 2,000 years ago, arrested death, literally locked up death and said, death will no longer be the end of the story. No longer will this kill people. No longer will their stories have to end in death. Do you believe? Do you know that you can? That the same Jesus who was friends with Lazarus and Martha and Mary, and that some in this very room say, Jesus is my friend, I believe in him, is for you today. You can believe in Jesus. You can leave this space still with your brokenness, still with your broken problems, but they do not have to end in death. And that when you feel like death is coming, you say, no, I know the resurrection and the life. Do you believe?